All right, this morning we're going to talk about pruning back knockout roses for the season. A lot of times during the growing season, if they're not well maintained, they can get a little bit too tall and a little too leggy. So what we're going to do now is just show you guys how to prune this back in the winter landscape. And again, you want to do this in very late winter, early spring. But in our climate down here where it's a little bit more mild, we can actually get a nice rejuvenation cut, one I'm about to show you, as early as November, and we can get a nice reflush and actually enjoy roses through part of the winter, and then giving them another reflush cut, rejuvenation cut in spring to get them ready for the growing season. So basically what we want to do is you can notice this rose is about 3 feet tall or so. We can bring this down to honestly about a foot tall. There's a couple of guidelines that you want to look for, and that's seeing if you could find some buds that are swollen along the stem here, and preferably if you can find a bud that's facing out from the center of the plant towards the outside of the plant. That way it'll direct the growth from the center of the plant towards the outside and not crowd the center of the plant. If you get things too thick and too dense in the middle, you're going to have branches crossing each other, which could rub and open up over time, which is an entry point for disease and for other pests. You also don't get enough airflow and enough light through there, and again, those can lead to disease and other issues down the road. So what we're going to go ahead and do is try to find some of our main canes right here, look for a good outward facing bud, and if you want to get textbook correct about it, you could do about a 45-degree angle cut with the higher end of the cut being above the node. While you're doing that, you're not going to cut right at the node, but just a fraction of an inch above it. Once you make that cut, inevitably part of this stem is going to die back. What you want to make sure is that it doesn't die back past the node that you've just cut to. So we've left this about a ½ inch above this node. It's slanted upward, so most of the height of the stem is right above the node of the rose. Next we'll go through and look at the rest of our canes here. Here's a nice outward facing one. Again, I'll go a fraction of an inch above it, get it pruned out of the way. Look at our other ones, see if we can find an outward facing bud. And this one's looking a little bit trickier. Got one right here. And again, now we've got some canes coming right through the center of the plant, and again, these are the ones that we want to avoid and keep the openness of that rose, the center of that, as open as possible with some airflow. So what we'll do in the center here is remove some of this inconsequential smaller growth and open up the center of that plant so that we don't have crossing branches like you can see here. This going back across the center of the plant we'll probably go ahead and get rid of. Looking at this, got a little bit of a bud there. Go ahead and prune him back. These are almost crossing. In all honesty, I think for right now you could probably leave it. You can see how it directs itself in the future, and if you need to remove one of these two, you can. Again, you'll notice the swollen buds right here, and these are what I'm looking for when I'm doing my pruning. Again, if I cut here, this branch is going to come straight up this way. If I cut here, this branch is going to go this way out from the center of the plant. And here's one in between those two that's actually going this way. So what I'll do to try and keep it more uniform is maybe give it a cut to here. And then again, just repeat with these larger canes, looking for an outward facing bud if you've got one. If not, just try to find it near a node and just a fraction of an inch above it. We'll cut this tag out of the way. And then again, removing some of this spindlier growth. Here we've got a little bit of disease and a little bit of dieback. Again, you're making that cut above the node so that the stem can die back some, but again, you'll notice it hasn't died back past that node. So we'll just remove this. It's obviously a very good idea if you have any deadwood in your rose while pruning it to get rid of it. Deadwood is often a spot where you can have disease and other funguses that deteriorate the plant or decompose it over time, move into the living tissue and hurt it. This branch is coming back across the center, but again, if I can make my cut above this node, it should redirect our growth back out. Then I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of some of this more inconsequential growth that's coming back across the center. Remove any deadwood that we see. And your end product is an open center here. Most of your cuts have been cut in a specific place to direct growth outward from the center of the rose. It's nice and small, and from this you should have a good reflush. By cutting this back, you're going to start activating the meristem or the buds down here lower on the branch, and should be able to get a nice new flush off of that, which should be thicker than if you would have just left it alone. And that's it for knockout roses in the winter.